When it comes to playing Minecraft, I consider myself to be a builder. I love creating detailed structures and building an immersive backstory, creating a lore that is truly developing as my world continues to evolve. I've built a wide range of structures throughout my time playing Minecraft, from the farm you see before you right here, lumber mills, sugarcane farms, towers and pyramids, to mines, custom trees, and yes, even more farmland. The point I am trying to emphasize here is I love building, but it can be very difficult to figure out where to begin. Figuring out what that first build is paramount in developing your world, and most people decide they're going to start with a house, and this is a good starting point, but you can do better. So join me as I take you down the first step to crafting your base the way you want it to be. I'm going to showcase you some really cool ideas that you can consider and some opportunities that you might be able to take up. And if you think you're going to enjoy that, do me a favor before we get any further, leave the video a like, hit subscribe, consider checking out my other social medias, those are linked down below. And without any further ado, let's get into the video. So let's begin with the obvious. A house. A house is always a great place to start when it comes to your first build in Minecraft, but I do strongly advise against it for reasons I'll get into in a moment. But if you're considering it, here's an example of a house that I built within my desert-themed village. If a desert isn't for you, then perhaps a log cabin in the middle of the woods is exactly what you need. This is one that I built in a world that I played on with my wife many years ago, and I still love this build to this day. And once upon a time, I was just messing about, and I threw together this little house here with a few dormer windows. So you've got 3 different examples of houses that I've built, and options that you can consider. Now, you could certainly go on and build a house. It's a great choice because you're going to have room inside for storage. You're also going to have plenty of room to play with on the outside, and you're going to take up a good chunk of your world and create that first strong step. So a house is always an option, but I tend to stray away from it because they're used so much and they're so easy and simple to design. I always like to think outside of the box. And to do this, you need to take a good, hard look at your world. Think outside the box. Think about the terrain. Think about the trees. Think about the land. Think about every block that you see before you. And we'll take this corner right here as an example. I see colourful plants. I also see right angles and high walls. So there's a few ideas that you could go with here. Consider a hobbit hole on each of the 3 walls, and maybe some sort of mystical magical garden in between. Not only are you creating a cool first build, you can use 1 hobbit hole for storage, 1 to live out of, and then you've got 1 free, but you're also creating lore for your world. You know that hobbits inhabit this area here, so any build around here should be hobbit themed. So you've gone from having just 1 simple build to now having a whole village that you can craft around the idea of hobbits living in this world. What of the jungle? That's an interesting place. There's always the idea of an Aztec kingdom below the canopy of the forest, but you could do something else with the jungle, something even more interesting. The trees here go incredibly high, and you could have walkways going from one to the other for a jungle kingdom hidden in the trees, built out of tree houses. And there you go. You've got an entire kingdom there just by walkways and tall trees. Now, when I started working on this dock right here, it didn't begin with even 1 of these blocks. No, it did not. Because this island right here was considered spawn. And we moved from this island across the ocean as we tried to rid ourselves from our past mistakes. And that's what I built into this lore. You see, we was running from something, our character was. He was running from something to something, and that gave me a really cool idea for where my world could begin. Because after traveling, I stumbled across this village right here, and I thought, okay, I'm going to take up residence in this village. And I could have nicked any one of these houses, but I thought, you know what? If I just randomly turned up to a village and nicked a house in real life, people would be angry. They would not be happy in the slightest. So how could I be a part of this village without actually taking over any particular house? And that's where this came in handy. I'm going to set up camp outside the village with my campfire, overlooking everything that could have potential. And then I built a dock over there instead of over here. But you get the idea that it just began with a tent because I was a traveler who wanted to take a residency in this village, didn't want to steal a house, so I came up with the idea of camping outside of the town. Now, I'm not overly proud of these particular buildings here, from our storage house to our starter house to an apartment complex. I think they all could have used some more detail, and so when I decided to restart this series and move over for season 2 and begin anew somewhere else in the world, I looked around me and I saw what I had, which was a lot of desert. So, I travelled through the desert on a horse with no name. So this is my farm right here. And I built this over several episodes, but this is the second part of that world you've just seen. After travelling through the desert on a horse with no name, and I was inspired by the song Horse with No Name, I made the decision that my first build in this area was going to be this cart right here. This actually has everything that we need. It has a bed inside, it's got storage all over it, but it wasn't going to be enough to see me through the beginnings of a world. It was a good starting point. So we added in this cave right here, which is where we set up camp, cooked our food, and we added in a storage system over here. Just a little one, enough to keep me through the early game, along with a wooden pile, and we added some bushes. And this is where this world built out from. It went from here to the stables, to the windmills, to the grain silos, to the Gilmore Girl house, to an automatic sheep farm. You can see this thing does spread for quite a distance. So when it comes to creating your world, it's very easy to look for a biome you prefer to build in, like a plains or a forest. Now, it's very easy when it comes to a less appealing biome like a swamp to go, you know what, no, don't want to build here, I'm going to go elsewhere. But if we just look around here, we've got access to quite a lot of resources, from spruce to birch to regular oak. We've got quite a bit here, so it could be a viable option to build in the swamp. And maybe you don't know what to build. Maybe you've got no clue what to do with this swamp. So that's where I strongly advise you to begin developing your lore. After a long journey through the elven forests of Fairway, the elf ran across an orc who was mean and cruel. He stole his gold and enslaved him forevermore. Thus began the war between the elves and the orcs. And thus the war began. We've got a contention point right here where they're striving for control so that they can fully invade each other. And over here in this bed, we've got demolished houses, burnt braziers, and destruction and debris littered everywhere. Further back, the Orc King has built himself a magnificent palace. Next door is a prison where he is enslaving elves that he has captured. Meanwhile, the Elven Kingdom is parading around captured orcs, using them to fell trees, using them to dig holes, using them to taunt the orcs into attacking a foolish point of interest. All the while, the lumberjack dwarves of the Spruce Kingdom are biding their time and waiting for the perfect moment to attack and take and seize control of both warring kingdoms. So the most important lesson that I want you to take away from this video is not that I've shown you block for block how to build your kingdom, or that I've given you the right ideas to start your first base, but that you should always begin with the lore of your kingdom. What's the rules? What are the people like? Where are the buildings going? What direction is the city being taken in? What story-driven events are progressing you through each milestone? Take care when you're thinking of that stuff. And by doing that, you can form a truly unique story, and the kingdom will inevitably just build itself. You'll know what to build and where to build it. You'll have fresh ideas coming to you all the time. With a war, there's so many options that you can build, from keeps to gatehouses to wrecked houses to normal, livable houses. You've also got travelling tanks, in the sense of carriages that could have artillery and weapons on them, trebuchets, catapults. You could go in any direction. What about the elves? What about a magical beam cannon, eh? What about that that's firing? You could use glass and terracotta to create the effect of the beam being launched at the orc, and a desolated, destroyed building in its wake. You've got all of these cool ideas that you could form just from a silly, stupid war. Alternatively, you've got pillagers that are always showing up. What about if your kingdom is an ally to the pillagers? What about if you befriend them? What about if you are trying to appease them? They are the gods that you worship, so you are building structures to dedicate to them, to offer tribute, sacrificial cows, sacrificial pigs. What about if they are the gods of your world? They created your world, and so you worship the ground they walk on. There's an option. And thus we find ourselves back here. It's my favorite build I've ever done, this dock. And why did I choose to do this dock? What was the inspiration behind this dock and the market stalls on here? Now if we take a look around here, you can see this is 1 stack for 1 diamond. Nobody's bought any iron. But if we go over here, you can see that people are buying leather. In addition, there are diamonds in this chest. You see, this market stall was rented out. This was rented out to my buddy, whose kingdom is just over there. Same with this market stall was rented out to my wife, whose kingdom is in that direction. You see, this build was part of a server. And so I built this dock here because if we fly in this direction, now if you look over there, you can see my buddy's kingdom. It spans further back than this. But if we turn, you can see that my dock is right here. It's facing him, and we can do trade, transport, and travel. And think about what you're going to need. I've got beds right here as benches. This just means that people on my dock can sleep relatively easy. So I hope you've come to learn something truly invaluable from this video. The building your kingdom is incredibly easy once you've got the lore behind it sorted. Don't be afraid to make up silly little things either. Whether it's a lantern that was used to light the way for the first ones, you can build a shrine around that. Or maybe you find the bones in the desert, and you decide that this being was an evil creature, and your people fear him, so you build a containment crystal around it. Or maybe you're just curious and think it's a dinosaur that roamed your lands long before you were even there. Maybe you have a blade that was used to slay the Ender Dragon, and you decide you're going to immortalize this blade as a legendary Excalibur, or your own version of. Now over on my second channel, I've got a series called Building with KC, which is a modded series where I'm building up an eternal world. And one of the things that I did in that world first was I built an island, and this small island has a kid on it. And this kid is scared. He's on his own, his dad's there with him, but he wants another kid to play with. And so my buddy came along with his kingdom, who's across from the island, and put another kid down. And these 2 kids now have a story. Now I've also got to build that kid's father's house because he's a farmer and he's trading goods. So I'm building the farm. That was my next task. And I figured out what my next build was going to be simply by just adding that 1 character in. So let your creative flourish. Let your mind truly drive the direction your world is going in. And don't be discouraged, because surely Minecraft builds look great, but eventually they will be unfinished, and it does take a long time to build up the kingdom. So don't let that discourage you. Keep on developing the lore, keep on building on that creativity, and eventually your kingdom will inevitably just build itself. So that's going to do it for me. If you want more advice on how to build your kingdom, consider checking out my hardcore series where we're doing just that currently. New episode will drop very shortly. But as I said, that's going to do it for me. I hope you've learned something from this video, and don't be afraid to tweet me pictures if you have. And leave me a comment. Let me know if you've had an idea for your kingdom just simply from watching this video. That would mean a lot to me. So guys, as always, I'm Casey. Thank you so much for watching.
A life worth living is a life with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my face. Work a job every day till your dreams fade away. Like a card, never change. Play the game that we say. I need a break.